You're watching Inside Automotive with Jim Fitzpatrick.
Despite the push towards EVs, the rate of adoption has been noticeably slower than many expected. Today we're discussing EV adoption in the U.S. and why we're seeing a shift in plug-in electric hybrid strategies right now. Joining us more to discuss more on this very topic is Joe McCabe, and he is the president and CEO of Auto Forecast Solutions. Thank you, Joe, for joining us on the show today.
Thanks, Jim. Always a pleasure.
Sure. So GM is bringing back the plug-in hybrid, the electric hybrid strategy. Talk to us about that and the recent shift in strategy. What's behind that?
Yeah, we've been telling our clients all the time to sort of not put all your eggs in the BEV basket. BEVs are, I've said before, are a governmental and environmental agenda to push full electrification. They're a solution or not, they are not just the solution. And we're not anti-EV, but we're pro, reality that each consumer has their own need for mobility and their own need to get from point A to point B, and a BEV might not be the only solution. So what you need to do is you got to convince a consumer that a plug is not a disruptor in their life. You got to add it in where they say, well, I'm going to try a plug-in hybrid today. I have my normal gas engine as sort of my backup strategy. But if I can convince myself that a plug is not too much of a disruptor, then maybe my next vehicle will be a BEV. So the idea of a plug-in hybrid strategy is to build this idea of a bridge technology to get consumers more aware of the value of it, and then hopefully for the next generation or the one after that to get them in a pure BEV space.
Sure, kind of wading them into the deep end somewhat, right?
Correct. This idea of pushing all in, it was a good approach. I mean, and I view it as a success. There's a high penetration rate of BEVs out there. And now you got to sort of dial it back and say, okay, we need not just the early adopters, we need the mass market to consume this. Yep. And we have to give them a full portfolio, not just one very narrow portfolio to work with.
That's right. We're also seeing more fleet companies, more rent-a-car companies out there that are now offering EVs. I fell into that myself and said, wow, this car is incredible. It was one of the first opportunities I had to drive an EV, and of course I was very impressed with it. But have you seen that out there where there's just more and more companies that are now moving to an EV environment for their customers?
Yeah, I mean, there's two sides to that story, a good one and a bad one, right? There's the Hertz story that made the huge investment into it.
Yeah.
And unfortunately got their CEO kicked out because the investment was too strong. They can't move the metal after after an Uber driver takes that Tesla and puts 150,000 miles on it in 12 months, they can't sell that Tesla for $30,000 when it goes back on the lot. So there was an economical problem. But in smaller fleets where companies are looking at it, as long as they put the infrastructure in and the charging capability, you're going to see this minor growth. We're calling for a leveling off of the adoption rate of BEVs in the next few years, not this 45-degree angle that we've been seeing. And then we're going to see another uptick as more people say, okay, this isn't a bad solution for my lifestyle.
Sure. How soon do you expect early EV adopters to peak in the U.S.?
Yeah, we are calling the apex now.
Right now,
We're saying in the next 3 years we're going to have a slower adoption rate, a slower month-over-month, year-over-year cadence of increases, but we're at a higher number. So that's the good news. It's a good platform we're at right now. But I think the next 3 or 4 years are going to have the consumer saying, okay, let me see what I really want to get into. The problem with high interest rates right now are not helping the cause. When you're talking about 8.5% interest rates, and on BEV is more, $15,000 more than its ICE brethren.
Right.
It could be a couple $100 a month in someone's pocket going, even though I like the BEV, I can't afford it right now.
Right.
So there's a lot of headwinds still in the way here when it comes to BEV adoption. I think we're not going to have a dip. I think we'll have sort of a flattening, and then 3 or 4 years, let's say a life cycle away, we're going to have now that change up where range is 400 miles and range is an issue, right? New battery technologies are in play. Costs are coming down because competition is coming up. But we're going to need that window to sort of reset that and recalibrate the industry.
Sure. Speaking of which, talk to us about China's influence. What are we seeing and what are you predicting?
Yeah, the Chinese want global dominance, right? They're going to get there through pushing electric vehicles all over the world. They're doing great jobs in Europe. Europe is, like I said, is mandating it more. So if you're mandating a consumer because you're cutting with, you're killing with 1,000 death by 1,000 cuts, HOV lanes and being able to be in certain areas and you have an EV, consumers say, okay, I have to get in this space. And if I have a $40,000 really high quality BYD branded vehicle or a $60,000 high quality Volkswagen, I'm going to look at that BYD vehicle. And they're doing really good with their product. We're gonna have them entering Mexico as early as 2026 with a production footprint. We think that's the place. Nearly 10% of all vehicles sold in Mexico just last year were Chinese branded vehicles. That doesn't count Buick Envisions that are built in China and imported here. That's Chinese branded vehicles. So they're really showing a huge penetration rate in Mexico. They're going to use that as their landing space, and they're going to try to move that upward. And I know there's a geopolitical issues and foreign entity of concerns issue, but at the end of the day, if you're building a product and you're creating U.S. jobs or North America jobs, and you're satisfying that, they are going to find a way in this market. Just like Japanese manufacturers found a sweet spot, and just like Korean manufacturers found it, the Chinese are going to find it with a very capable BEV at a really good price. They want North America market share at any cost. They don't care about the tariff. They don't care about the cost. They just want market share.
Yeah. Speaking of tariffs, how big of an impact does this presidential campaign have this year?
It's huge. It's absolutely huge, right? If the White House swings, we're going to have less about, let's dial back this idea of this all-in BEV. Let's get there more gradual, but we're still going to punish these foreign entity concerns. So, Trump wants to come in and say, hey, if a Chinese manufacturer comes in Mexico, we're going to tariff them 100%. And I think the Chinese manufacturer can go, okay, I just want market share. I'm willing to lose money on every vehicle if I can gain market share.
Wow.
I mean, other brands have done this in the past. So this is an absolute political football going on. We saw the EPA credits get dialed back because it's too hard on manufacturers to make a profit when new entrants like a Tesla or a Rivian or Neo can make money and not be penalized because all they have is a BEV.
Sure.
So it's got to be a recalibration, and I think this is going to be a really interesting end of year comes how that recalibration takes in effect.
Oh, no question. And speaking about the tariffs, isn't it going to make sense then for these other countries, especially China, to turn around and say, oh, well, two can play at that game. Any U.S. cars or any cars built in the U.S. coming into China, we're just going to put a tariff that kills you as well.
Not just tariff, but they're squeezing out a lot of the joint ventures that have been there for decades. When GM, Ford, and Stellantis all go in there, they had to go with a joint venture. Tesla didn't. So when they go into China, they're going to say, well, we're going to try to squeeze these brands out. So it's not just about the vehicles coming in. It's the vehicles that are being built there that power is being pulled out, that is being impacted by the traditionals.
Sure. Overall, whether it be a BEV vehicle or an ICE vehicle or what have you, or a electric vehicle, what's your take for the balance of the year? Do you think we're going to be okay?
Yeah, I think we're going to be okay. I think you're going to see a lot of new product come out. We're already seeing manufacturers like Ford recalibrate their strategy. They were going to build an Explorer BEV in Oakville, Canada, and they said we're going to delay that 2 years because we now need to put that emphasis on plug-in hybrids. We saw Mary Barra come out and say, yeah, we admit we got to fill that bridge. We're going to have more of a balanced portfolio. So you're going to see a lot of recalibration fast. And fast in the automotive space always gets me a little concerned because fast usually means quality gets impacted, recalls go up, and so you can't all of a sudden fix it overnight and say everything's going to be rosy. I think we got some bumpy roads ahead, but I think we're still moving in the right direction. And you're looking at internal combustion engine, it's 99% more efficient than it was just 20 years ago. So it's not that we have all these, coal polluting things and all these pretty BEVs out there. There is a nice balance of a healthy portfolio that will eventually get there. It's just got to be over time, not overnight.
Sure. Toyota, do you think those guys are doing a little bit of a end zone dance right now going, we nailed it?
I always say, Toyota, I need a shirt that says Toyota always gets it right. I mean, they always get it right. They don't mind taking the negative news, knowing that we want to be here for 500 years, not 50 and 5. We need legacy money, and we need the company to keep going.
Right.
And you're right. They're doing a little victory lap because they said, we're going to take our time, understand what the consumer wants, and then develop. The Koreans do the same thing. They listen to the consumer and they develop. Instead of, I built you a product, please, you better consume this, other manufacturers use right now because they're scrutinized under a different lens. So they nailed it again.
Yeah, they did. It's the reason every single dealer out there wants a Toyota franchise in their group, right? Or 4 or 5.
Correct. Yeah.
That's right. Joe McCabe, President and CEO of Auto Forecast Solutions. Thank you so much for joining us here on Inside Automotive at CBT News. Very much appreciated. And look forward to our next time together. Thank you.
Thanks, Jim. Me too.
Thanks.
Thanks for watching Inside Automotive with Jim Fitzpatrick.